In a small, quiet town surrounded by rolling hills and dense forests, the Parker family lived an ordinary life. Their home was modest but warm, filled with laughter and love, or so it seemed to everyone who knew them. But beneath the surface of their peaceful existence lay secrets that would one day unravel in ways no one could have predicted. This is the story of Daniel Parker, the youngest child of the family whose life changed forever when he was just 15 years old. It all began on a cold winter morning, one that started like any other but ended in unimaginable heartbreak. The Tynan Parker household woke up to find Emily, Daniel's older sister, unresponsive in her bed. She was only 18, bright, beautiful, and full of dreams for the future. Her sudden passing left the entire family reeling. No one could explain what had happened. Doctors called it a tragic accident, though the details remained vague. For Daniel, losing his sister felt like losing a part of himself. Emily had been more than just his sibling. She was his confidant, his protector, and his best friend. The days following Emily's death were a blur of tears, whispers, and hushed conversations among the adults. Funerals were planned, condolences poured in, and eventually the town moved on. But for the Parkers, life would never be the same again. They buried Emily in a serene spot atop a hill overlooking the town, a place she used to visit often during her lifetime. It was supposed to bring comfort, knowing she rested somewhere she loved. Yet, as time passed, Daniel couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. One thing particularly stood out to him: his father's behavior. After the funeral, Daniel noticed that his father began visiting Emily's grave almost every day. Sometimes he stayed there for hours, sitting silently under the shade of the trees or staring at the headstone as if waiting for it to speak. When Daniel asked about these visits, his father simply said, "I need time to grieve." But grief didn't feel like enough of an explanation. There was something else, something deeper, that his father wasn't sharing. As weeks turned into months, Daniel became increasingly curious. He started watching his father closely, trying to piece together clues. One evening, while eavesdropping from the doorway of his father's study, he overheard fragments of a conversation. His father was speaking on the phone, his voice low and strained. "I did what I thought was right," he muttered, "but now I don't know anymore." The line went silent for a moment before his father added, "If only she hadn't tried to." Then he stopped abruptly, as if realizing someone might be listening. Daniel's curiosity deepened. What was his father hiding, and why did it seem connected to Emily's death? These questions haunted him, gnawing at his thoughts until he couldn't ignore them anymore. He decided to investigate, not because he wanted to hurt anyone, but because he needed answers. Something inside him whispered that understanding the truth might help ease the heavy burden he'd been carrying since Emily's passing. His first step was to revisit Emily's room, which had remained untouched since her death. His mother refused to go near it, saying it was too painful, but Daniel felt drawn to it. As he stepped inside, memories flooded back. The sound of her laughter, the way she hummed songs while brushing her hair, the countless nights they spent talking about their hopes and dreams. The room still smelled faintly of her favorite perfume, a scent that made his chest tighten with longing. He began rummaging through her belongings, searching for anything unusual. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Her books were neatly stacked. On the shelves, her clothes hung tidily in the closet, and her desk was cluttered with notebooks and pens. But then, hidden beneath a loose floorboard near her bed, he found something unexpected: a bundle of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. The letters were addressed to Emily, each envelope bearing the name Liam in bold handwriting. Intrigued, Daniel opened the first one. It was filled with heartfelt words of love and admiration, written in a tone that suggested Liam was deeply devoted to her. The letter spoke of shared dreams, secret meetings, and plans for a future together. Daniel's hands trembled as he read on. Who was Liam? Why had Emily never mentioned him? He continued reading through the stack, piecing together fragments of a relationship he had known nothing about. According to the letters, Emily and Liam had been planning to run away together. They dreamed of escaping the confines of their small town and building a life free from expectations and rules. However, the letters grew increasingly desperate as time went on. In one, Liam begged Emily to reconsider leaving without him, saying he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. In another, he urged her to stay safe and promised to meet her soon. The final letter, however, chilled Daniel to the bone. Written just days before Emily's death, it contained a sense of urgency and fear. Liam warned Emily not to trust anyone, not even those closest to her, and implored her to keep their plans a secret. "If they find out," he wrote, "everything will be ruined." The letter ended with a plea. "Please, Em, don't do anything reckless. Wait for me." Daniel sat on the edge of Emily's bed, clutching the letters tightly. His mind raced with possibilities. Had Emily's death been more than just an accident? Was there a connection between her relationship with Liam and the mysterious behavior of their father? The weight of these questions pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. He knew he couldn't keep this discovery to himself, but he also feared what uncovering the truth might mean for his family. That night, as he lay awake in bed, Daniel replayed the events leading up to Emily's death in his mind. He remembered how upset she had seemed in the weeks prior, though she always brushed it off when he asked if something was wrong. He recalled arguments between their parents, muffled voices behind closed doors, and the tension that lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. Most vividly, he remembered the last conversation he'd had with Emily, a fleeting moment when she pulled him aside and whispered, "Take care of yourself, Danny. No matter what happens, promise me you'll live your life fully." At the time, her words had seemed strange but not alarming. Now they took on a new meaning. Had Emily known something was coming? Was she trying to warn him? The thought sent shivers down his spine. The next morning, Daniel resolved to dig deeper. He couldn't let Emily's memory fade into obscurity, overshadowed by unanswered questions and half-truths. Whatever secrets lay buried in the past, he was determined to unearth them, even if it meant confronting the people he loved most. Little did he know, his journey was only beginning, and the truth he sought would change everything he thought he knew about his family, his sister, and himself. This marked the start of a long and emotional quest, one that would test Daniel's courage, challenge his beliefs, and ultimately lead him to a revelation that would leave everyone in tears. The discovery of the letters left Daniel with more questions than answers. Each word written by Liam seemed to hint at a hidden world that Emily had kept carefully guarded from her family. As he sat alone in his room, rereading the letters for what felt like the 100th time, Daniel couldn't help but wonder why his sister had chosen to keep such an important part of her life a secret. Was she afraid? Or was there something or someone stopping her from being honest? Determined to uncover the truth, Daniel decided to follow the trail laid out in the letters. One phrase in particular stood out: "Remember our spot by the Ao River." It appeared multiple times, often accompanied by descriptions of stolen moments and whispered promises. The river wasn't far from their home, a winding stream that cut through the forest, its banks lined with tall trees and wildflowers. Daniel had spent countless afternoons playing there as a child, but he had no memory of Emily ever mentioning it as a special place. Early the next morning, before anyone else in the house stirred, Daniel grabbed a flashlight and set off toward the river. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. He walked slowly, scanning the surroundings for anything unusual. After about 20 minutes, he reached a bend in the river, where the water pooled into a small, clear lagoon. This area looked familiar. It was one of Emily's favorite spots, though she rarely came here after turning 16. At least that's what Daniel had thought. As he stepped closer to the edge of the water, his eyes caught sight of something odd. A large tree stump stood near the bank, its hollow center exposed. Curiosity tugged at him, and he approached cautiously. Peering inside, he found a small wooden box tucked away in the shadows. His heart raced as he pulled it out and brushed off the dirt covering its surface. The box was old but sturdy, with intricate carvings etched into the lid. Taking a deep breath, Daniel opened it. Inside, he discovered a collection of items that made his stomach churn with emotion. There were photographs of Emily and Liam, smiling brightly as they posed against the backdrop of the river. Some pictures showed them holding hands, while others captured candid moments of laughter and joy. Beneath the photos lay a leather-bound journal, its cover worn and faded. Daniel hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should invade Emily's privacy further. But the weight of the unanswered questions pressing down on him pushed him forward. He flipped open the journal and began reading. The entries were dated sporadically over several months, starting just a year before Emily's death. From the very first page, it was clear that Emily had been struggling. She wrote about feeling trapped in their small town, suffocated by her parents' expectations and yearning for freedom. Her words painted a picture of a young woman desperate to break free from the constraints of her life. "I can't keep living like this," one entry read. "Every day feels like I'm drowning. Mom and Dad don't understand me, they never have. All they care about is keeping up appearances. But I'm not like them. I want to see the world, to live without fear or judgment. Liam gets it. He sees me for who I really am. With him, I feel alive." Another entry revealed the depth of her relationship with Liam. "We've been planning everything. We'll leave soon, just the two of her. No rules, no restrictions. Just us and the open road. I know it sounds crazy, but I've never felt so sure about anything in my life. If only I could tell Danny. He'd understand, wouldn't he?" Daniel's throat tightened as he read those words. She had thought about telling him. She had trusted him enough to consider sharing her dreams. Yet something had stopped her. Something or someone had silenced her. The tone of the journal shifted dramatically in the later entries. Gone was the excitement and hope. Instead, there was fear and frustration. In one particularly chilling passage, Emily wrote, "Things are getting worse. Dad knows something is going on. He keeps asking questions, watching me like a hawk. I tried to lie, but I think he suspects. Liam says we need to be careful, that we can't risk getting caught. But how much longer can I pretend? I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, waiting for the floor to collapse beneath me." The final entry stopped Daniel cold. Written just 2 weeks before Emily's death, it was short and fragmented, as if she hadn't finished it. "I don't know what to do anymore, they're closing in. Liam says we still have a chance, but I'm scared. What if..." That was all. The rest of the page was blank, leaving Daniel staring at the unfinished sentence, his mind racing with possibilities. What had happened after that? Had their father confronted her? Had she tried to leave despite the risks? And most importantly, had Liam even known about her death? Daniel closed the journal, his hands trembling. He didn't know whether to feel anger, sadness, or betrayal. For years, he had believed that Emily's death was a tragic accident, an unavoidable twist of fate. Now he wasn't so sure. Everything pointed to something darker, something deliberate. Someone had intervened, cutting short Emily's plans and silencing her forever. When he returned home, Daniel hid the box under his bed, unable to face his family yet. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, fragments of memories began to resurface. He remembered overhearing arguments between his parents during Emily's final weeks. His father's voice had been sharp and commanding, while his mother pleaded softly, urging caution. At the time, Daniel had dismissed it as typical parental disagreements. Now he wondered if those fights had been about Emily. Over the next few days, Daniel struggled to act normal around his family. He avoided his father's gaze, fearing he might accidentally reveal what he knew. But avoidance wasn't enough. He needed answers. Gathering his courage, he decided to confront his father directly. One evening, after dinner, he cornered him, in the study. "Dad," Daniel began, his voice shaky but determined, "I need to ask you something. About Emily." His father froze, his expression unreadable. "What about her?" he asked, his tone cautious. Daniel took a deep breath. "Did you know she was planning to run away? With someone named Liam?" For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, His father sank into the chair behind his desk, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world had crashed down on him. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "How did you find out?" So it was true. His suspicions had been correct. Daniel felt a mix of relief and dread wash over him. "It doesn't matter how I know," he replied. "What matters is why you never told us. Why did you keep it a secret?" His father buried his face in his hands, his breathing uneven. "Because I didn't know how to handle it," he admitted. "When I found out about Liam, about their plans, I panicked. I couldn't let her throw her life away like that. She was so young, so impressionable. I thought I was doing the right thing by stopping her." "Stopping her?" Daniel echoed, his voice rising. "You mean controlling her? Did you even stop to think about how she felt, about what she wanted?" "I thought I was protecting her," his father snapped, his composure cracking. "But now I realize I may have done more harm than good." The admission hung heavy in the air, leaving Daniel stunned. His father, the man he had always looked up to, wasn't the hero he had imagined. He was flawed, human, and capable of making mistakes that had devastating consequences. Before either of them could say more, Daniel turned and left the room, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. He didn't know what to do next. Should he share the journal with his mother? Should he try to track down Liam? Or should he let the past remain buried, allowing his family to heal in peace? As he sat alone in his room that night, clutching the journal close to his chest, Daniel realized that the truth was both a blessing and a curse. It offered clarity but also demanded accountability. Uncovering Emily's story meant confronting uncomfortable realities, not just about his father, but about himself and the choices he would make moving forward. Little did he know, the journey was far from over. The secrets buried in Emily's past ran deeper than he could have imagined, and the path to uncovering them would test his strength, resilience, and faith in ways he had never anticipated. The confrontation with his father left Daniel reeling, but it also lit a fire within him. He couldn't stop now, not when he was so close to uncovering the full truth about Emily's life and death. The journal had given him glimpses of her struggles, her dreams, and her fears. But there were still gaps that needed filling. Who was Liam? What role had he played in Emily's final days? And why had their father gone to such lengths to hide their relationship? Daniel knew he couldn't rely solely on his father for answers. If anything, the man seemed more broken than helpful, weighed down by guilt and regret. Instead, Daniel decided to take matters into his own hands. His next step was clear: find Liam. Tracking Liam down wouldn't be easy. The letters didn't include an address or phone number, only vague references to places they used to meet. But Daniel wasn't deterred. He started by asking around town, discreetly mentioning Liam's name to older residents who might remember him. At first, no one seemed to know much. Then one afternoon, while chatting with Mrs. Harper, the elderly librarian, Daniel hit a breakthrough. "Oh, Liam," Mrs. Harper said thoughtfully, adjusting her glasses. "He was a quiet boy, always polite. Worked at the garage on Main Street before he moved away. Yes, I'm almost certain he went to Chicago after high school." Chicago. The word sent a jolt through Daniel. It was a lead, a tangible clue that could finally bring him closer to understanding Emily's story. That evening, fueled by determination, Daniel scoured online directories and social media platforms searching for anyone named Liam who matched the description from the photographs. After hours of scrolling, clicking, and cross-referencing, he found a profile that fit. Liam Carter, a mechanic living in Chicago. With trembling fingers, Daniel sent a message. He kept it brief, introducing himself as Emily's brother and explaining that he needed to talk about something important. Days passed without a response, and Daniel began to worry that Liam wouldn't reply, or worse, that he had blocked the message altogether. Just as doubt started creeping in, his phone buzzed with a notification. Liam had responded. "Who are you?" the message read. "And how do you know about Emily?" Relieved yet nervous, Daniel typed out a reply. "I'm her younger brother, Daniel. I recently found some letters she wrote to you. I need to understand what happened between you two, and why she never got the chance to leave this town." There was another long pause before Liam answered. This time his tone was softer, tinged with sadness. "I've waited years for someone to ask me that question," he wrote. "If you're serious about finding out, we should meet in person." They agreed to meet at a small cafe in downtown Chicago the following weekend. Daniel booked a bus ticket, packed a bag, and left a note for his parents saying he'd be visiting a friend out of town. He didn't mention where he was going or why. He wasn't ready to share this part of his journey with anyone else. The trip to Chicago felt endless, each mile stretching longer than the last. When Daniel finally arrived at the cafe, he spotted Liam almost immediately. The man sitting by the window bore a striking resemblance to the photos in the wooden box, only older, wearier, with lines etched into his face that spoke of years spent carrying heavy burdens. As Daniel approached, Liam stood up, extending a hand. "You must be Daniel," he said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "You look just like her." Those simple words unleashed a flood of memories, and for a moment, Daniel struggled to compose himself. "Thank you for meeting me," he managed to say, taking a seat across from Liam. Liam nodded, pushing a cup of coffee toward him. "I wasn't sure I'd ever hear from your family again," he admitted. "After Emily, well, I assumed everyone wanted to forget about me." Daniel hesitated, unsure where to begin. Finally, he pulled out the journal and placed it on the table. "I found this," he said. "It belonged to Emily. Reading it made me realize how much I didn't know about her and about you." Liam's eyes widened as he reached for the journal. Flipping through its pages, he let out a shaky breath. "She kept writing," he murmured, almost to himself. "Even after everything." "What happened, Liam?" Daniel asked, his voice cracking. "Why did she stop talking about leaving? Why did she die?" Liam leaned back in his chair, staring out the window as if gathering his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his words came slowly, carefully chosen. "Emily and I had big plans," he began. "We wanted to escape, to start over somewhere new, somewhere we could be ourselves without judgment. But her dad, he found out. I don't know how, but he confronted her, told her she couldn't see me anymore, threatened to ruin my life if I didn't stay away." Daniel's stomach churned. His father's confession echoed in his mind, but hearing it from Liam made it all the more real. "Did she listen to him?" he asked. "At first she tried to obey," Liam replied. "She stopped answering my calls, avoided our usual spots, but we couldn't stay apart for long. We met secretly, planning our escape. She was scared, though, said her dad was watching her every move. The night she died, she called me. She sounded panicked. She said she was coming to meet me, that she couldn't wait any longer. I told her to be careful, to watch out for cars." His voice trailed off, choked with emotion. Daniel felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. "So it really was an accident?" he whispered. Liam shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "No, not entirely. Your father might not have meant for her to die, but he drove her to that point. He pushed her until she felt like running was her only option. And then..." He paused, struggling to continue. "Then she ran straight into danger because she didn't have a choice." The weight of Liam's words settled heavily on Daniel. For years he had believed his sister's death was senseless, random. Now he understood the truth. It was the result of fear, control, and misplaced intentions. Emily hadn't been reckless or careless. She had been desperate, cornered by circumstances beyond her control. As they talked further, Liam shared stories about Emily that Daniel had never heard before. He described her laugh, her kindness, her fierce determination to live life on her own terms. He showed Daniel old photographs and mementos they had collected during their time together, each item a testament to the love they had shared. By the end of their conversation, Daniel felt a strange mix of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the life Emily had lost, and gratitude for the glimpse into the world she had kept hidden from him. Before leaving, Liam handed Daniel a small envelope. "This is for you," he said softly. "It's something Emily gave me before everything fell apart. I think she'd want you to have it now." Inside the envelope was a locket engraved with delicate flowers. Opening it revealed two tiny pictures. One of Emily, smiling brightly, and the other blank. "She said it was supposed to hold a picture of whoever meant the most to her," Liam explained. "But she never got the chance to finish it." Daniel clutched the locket tightly, feeling a surge of emotions he couldn't quite put into words. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with tears, "for telling me the truth, for loving her." When Daniel returned home, he was different. The journey to Chicago had changed him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. He carried the locket, with him everywhere, a reminder of Emily's courage and the sacrifices she had made. More importantly, he carried a newfound resolve to honor her memory, not by dwelling on the past, but by ensuring her story was told. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began piecing together everything he had learned. He shared bits and pieces with his mother, who listened with tears in her eyes, horrified by the secrets her husband had kept. Together, they decided it was time to confront the truth as a family. They couldn't undo the past, but they could choose to face it together. One evening, Daniel gathered his parents in the living room. Holding the journal, the locket, and the photographs, he laid everything out on the coffee table. "This is Emily's story," he said firmly. "Not the version we've been telling ourselves for years, but the real one. She deserved better than what happened to her. We all do." His father buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by shame and regret. His mother reached for Daniel's hand, squeezing it tightly. For the first time in years, the Parkers allowed themselves to truly grieve, not just for Emily's death, but for the life she had been denied. In the months that followed, the family worked to rebuild their fractured relationships. They reached out to Liam, inviting him to visit and sharing memories of Emily that brought both laughter and tears. Slowly but surely, they began to heal, guided by the belief that love, honesty, and forgiveness could overcome even the deepest wounds. Though the pain of losing Emily would never fully fade, Daniel found solace in knowing that her spirit lived on, not just in the stories they told, but in the lessons she had taught them about bravery, authenticity, and the importance of living fully, no matter the cost. The decision to confront the truth as a family marked a turning point for the Parkers. It wasn't easy, far from it. Each day felt like walking through a minefield where one wrong step could shatter the fragile progress they had made. But Daniel, driven by his promise to honor Emily's memory, refused to let fear or guilt derail them. He believed that uncovering every layer of her story was the only way to truly heal. With the journal, the locket, and Liam's revelations laid bare on the table, the Parkers began piecing together the puzzle of Emily's life. Her mother, Sarah, took the lead in organizing old photo albums and mementos, hoping to find clues about her daughter's hidden struggles. She spent hours poring over pictures, searching for signs she might have missed all those years ago. Meanwhile, Daniel focused on writing letters, to Emily, to himself, and even to Liam, as a way of processing everything he had learned. Writing became his therapy, helping him untangle the emotions swirling inside him. Their father, John, remained largely silent during these early days. While Sarah and Daniel worked tirelessly to reconstruct Emily's world, John retreated into himself, consumed by guilt and shame. He avoided their conversations, unable to face the reality of what his actions, or inactions, had cost his family. One evening, however, Daniel decided it was time to break through his father's walls. "Dad," Daniel said gently, sitting across from him in the dimly lit study, "we need you to talk to us, not just about Emily, but about how you're feeling." John sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "What do you want me to say, Danny? That I ruined everything? That I tried to protect her, but instead, I drove her away?" "Yes," Daniel replied firmly. "That's exactly what we need you to say. Because until you admit it, none of us can move forward." For a moment, John looked as though he might argue. Then his shoulders slumped, and he nodded. "You're right," he whispered. "I've been running from this for too long." Over the next hour, John opened up in a way he never had before. He spoke about the pressures he had faced as a father, the expectations placed on him by society, his own parents, and even himself. He admitted that when he discovered Emily's plans to run away with Liam, he had panicked. Instead of listening, to her he had reacted out of fear, forbidding her from seeing Liam and threatening to ruin the boy's future if he didn't comply. "I thought I was doing the right thing," John confessed, his voice trembling. "I thought I was protecting her from making a mistake, but now I see I wasn't protecting her at all. I was controlling her, and in the end, I lost her completely." Hearing these words aloud was painful, but also cathartic. For the first time, the Parkers acknowledged the role fear and control had played in Emily's life and death. They realized that while John's intentions may have stemmed from love, his methods had suffocated her spirit, leaving her feeling trapped and desperate. As the family continued to unpack their shared history, Daniel began thinking about ways to publicly honor Emily's memory. He wanted to ensure that her courage and determination weren't forgotten, not just by their family, but by the entire town. After discussing it with his mother and Liam, who had since visited several times, they agreed to organize a memorial service at the spot where Emily was buried. The idea quickly gained traction. Friends, neighbors, and classmates who had known Emily volunteered to help plan the event. Flyers were posted around town, inviting everyone to come together to celebrate her life. On the day of the memorial, the hilltop overlooking the town transformed into a sea of flowers, candles, and heartfelt tributes. People brought photographs, poems, and stories about Emily, painting a vivid picture of the vibrant young woman she had been. During the ceremony, Daniel stood before the crowd, clutching the locket in one hand and the journal in the other. His heart pounded as he prepared to speak, but he reminded himself why he was doing this. For Emily. "Most of you knew my sister as kind, adventurous, and full of life," he began, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. But there was another side to her, a side she kept hidden from almost everyone. Emily dreamed of freedom, of living authentically without fear or judgment. Those dreams were taken from her, not because of fate, but because of choices made by people who loved her but didn't know how to support her. He paused, glancing at his father, who sat quietly in the front row, tears streaming down his face. "Today we're here not just to remember Emily, but to learn from her story, to remind ourselves that love isn't about control, it's about trust. It's about giving each other space to grow, to make mistakes, and to chase our dreams, even if those dreams look different from what we imagined." His words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom nodded in agreement or wiped away tears. When he finished speaking, Liam stepped forward to share his own memories of Emily. His voice cracked as he described their secret meetings by the river, their late-night conversations under the stars, and the plans they had made for a future neither of them got to experience. By the time he concluded, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. After the speeches, attendees released balloons into the sky, each one carrying a message for Emily. Some wrote apologies, others expressed gratitude, and many simply said, "We miss you." As the colorful balloons drifted upward, carried by the wind, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe that Emily was finally free, not just in spirit, but in the hearts of those who loved her. In the weeks following the memorial, the Parker family continued to work on healing. They attended counseling sessions together, learning healthier ways to communicate and support one another. Slowly but surely, the cracks in their relationships began to mend. Even John, who had once seemed unreachable, started opening up more. He apologized repeatedly, not just to Daniel and Sarah, but also to Liam, expressing remorse for the pain he had caused. One afternoon, while tidying up the attic, Daniel stumbled upon another box tucked away in a corner. Inside, he found a collection of Emily's childhood drawings, report cards, and letters she had written to Santa Claus. Among the items was a small notebook filled with doodles and random thoughts. Flipping through its pages, Daniel discovered a note addressed to him. "Dear Danny, If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer around to tell you myself. I want you to know how proud I am of you. You're brave, smart, and kind, everything I wish I could be. Don't ever let anyone dull your light. Live your life fully, okay? Promise me that. Tears blurred Daniel's vision as he read the note. Over and over again. It was as though Emily were speaking directly to him, urging him to keep moving forward. In that moment, he realized that honoring her memory wasn't just about uncovering the past. It was about embracing the future with the same courage and authenticity she had always sought. Inspired by her words, Daniel decided to take a bold step. For years, he had put his own dreams on hold, prioritizing the needs of his family above his own desires. Now, he resolved to change that. He enrolled in a photography course, something he had always been passionate about but never pursued seriously. Through the lens of a camera, he found a new way to express himself and capture the beauty of the world around him. His newfound passion brought unexpected opportunities. A local art gallery offered to showcase some of his work, and soon, Daniel's photographs gained attention beyond the small town. Each image told a story of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of love. One particular piece, titled Freedom's Edge, depicted the riverbank where Emily and Liam used to meet. It became the centerpiece of his exhibition, drawing visitors from miles away. Through it all, Daniel stayed connected with Liam, who had become an integral part of their family's healing process. Together, they created a scholarship fund in Emily's name, designed to support young women pursuing education and independence. The initiative resonated deeply with the community, raising thousands of dollars within its first year. As time passed, the Parker family grew stronger, united by their shared commitment to honor Emily's legacy. They still mourned her absence, but their grief was tempered by gratitude for the lessons she had taught them, for the bonds they had rebuilt, and for the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And so, the truth that had once threatened to tear them apart ultimately brought them closer together. Emily's story served as a reminder that even in the darkest moments there is always light, if only we have the courage to seek it. The Parker family had come a long way since the day Daniel first uncovered Emily's hidden journal. What began as a quest for answers had transformed into a journey of healing, growth, and rediscovery, not just for Daniel, but for everyone touched by Emily's story. Yet even as life seemed to settle into a new rhythm, there were still lingering questions that demanded resolution. For Daniel, one question loomed larger than the rest. What was buried beneath the surface of Emily's grave? It wasn't something he had planned to investigate. In fact, the idea came to him unexpectedly during a quiet moment of reflection at her gravesite. He had visited often over the past few months, finding solace in the peaceful hilltop where she rested. On this particular evening, however, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Daniel noticed something unusual. The earth around the headstone appeared slightly uneven, as though it had been disturbed, recently or perhaps long ago. At first, he dismissed the observation as paranoia. After all, graves weren't meant to remain perfectly intact forever. Weather, animals, and time could all contribute to changes in the landscape. But as he knelt closer to inspect the ground, his curiosity deepened. There were faint markings on the soil, indentations that suggested someone had dug here before covering their tracks. His heart began to race. Was it possible that someone had tampered with Emily's resting place? The thought gnawed at him for days, refusing to let go. He tried to rationalize it, telling himself it was probably nothing more than natural erosion or maintenance work done by the cemetery staff. Still, the nagging feeling persisted. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, Daniel decided to investigate further. Late one moonlit night, armed with a flashlight and a small shovel borrowed from the garden shed, he returned to the gravesite. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of damp grass and wildflowers. As he stood before Emily's headstone, Daniel hesitated, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Digging up a grave felt wrong, almost sacrilegious. But the possibility that something important, or perhaps even incriminating, lay hidden beneath The soil kept him rooted to the spot. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself why he was doing this. If there was a chance to uncover another piece of Emily's story, no matter how painful, he owed it to her and to himself to see it through. With trembling hands, Daniel began digging. The soft earth gave way easily under the blade of the shovel, revealing layers of dirt mingled with roots and pebbles. Each scoop felt heavier than the last, not because of physical exertion, but because of the weight of what he might find. Hours passed, and his back ached from the effort, but he didn't stop. When the tip of the shovel struck something solid, his breath hitched in his throat. Carefully brushing away the remaining soil, Daniel uncovered the edge of a wooden casket. It was old and weathered, its surface marked by cracks and splinters. He paused, his pulse pounding in his ears. This was it, Emily's coffin. But something about the scene didn't feel right. The casket seemed smaller than he expected, and there was an odd indentation near its side, as if another object had been placed alongside it. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Daniel continued digging until he revealed the full length of the casket. Sure enough, tucked snugly against it was a smaller box, rectangular in shape and wrapped in a layer of protective cloth. His hands trembled as he reached for it, pulling it free from the earth. The box was surprisingly light, its surface smooth and polished, despite years underground. Heart racing, Daniel opened it. Inside, he found 3 items: a delicate silver locket engraved with tiny flowers, a folded piece of paper, and a photograph of Emily and Liam standing hand in hand by the river. The sight of these objects sent a wave of emotion crashing over him. He recognized the locket immediately. It was the same one Liam had given him during their meeting in Chicago. But seeing it here, buried alongside Emily, made his chest tighten with grief and awe. Setting the locket aside, Daniel unfolded the note. Written in Emily's familiar handwriting were words that brought tears streaming down his face. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Please tell Liam I loved him more than anything. Don't let my dreams die with me. The message was simple yet profound, filled with both love and longing. It was clear now that Emily had intended for someone, perhaps Liam, to find this box someday. But why had it been buried with her? And who had put it there? Daniel sat back on his heels, staring at the items in stunned silence. Then, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place, realization dawned on him. His father, John, must have discovered the box among Emily's belongings after her death and decided to bury it with her. Perhaps he had hoped it would serve as a final act of reconciliation, a way to honor her memory while keeping her secret safe. As dawn broke over the hilltop, casting golden light across the landscape, Daniel carefully rewrapped the box and placed it back beside the casket. He covered the grave once more, smoothing the soil until it looked undisturbed. Exhausted but strangely at peace, he lingered for a moment longer, whispering a silent promise to Emily. "I'll make sure your dreams live on," he said softly. "I swear." When Daniel returned home, he shared his discovery with his parents. At first, they were shocked and saddened to learn about the box. But as Daniel explained its contents and the message Emily had left behind, a sense of clarity washed over them. Sarah clutched the locket tightly, tears streaming down her face while John sat quietly, his expression a mixture of guilt and gratitude. "She wanted us to know," Sarah murmured. "Even in death, she was trying to reach out to us." John nodded, his voice barely audible. "She forgave me, even when I couldn't forgive myself." Their reaction reinforced Daniel's belief that the truth, no matter how painful, had the power to heal. By confronting the past and embracing Emily's legacy, the Parker family had begun to rebuild their lives in ways they never thought possible. They continued working together to honor her memory, organizing community events, supporting young women through the scholarship fund, and sharing her story with anyone willing to listen. In the months that followed, Daniel focused on channeling his emotions into his photography. His exhibitions grew in popularity, drawing attention not only locally but also in nearby cities. One of his most celebrated pieces, titled Buried Dreams, featured a hauntingly beautiful image of Emily's gravesite, bathed in moonlight. Beneath the photograph, he included a quote from her journal, "Don't let my dreams die with me." The artwork resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom were moved to tears. Some approached Daniel afterward, sharing their own stories of loss, regret, and redemption. Through these connections, Daniel realized that Emily's story wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever struggled to break free from fear, control, or societal expectations. Her courage inspired others to pursue their own dreams, no matter how daunting the obstacles might seem. Meanwhile, Liam remained a steadfast presence in the Parker family's life. Together, they worked to ensure that Emily's spirit lived on through acts of kindness and advocacy. They organized workshops for teenagers, teaching them the importance of self-expression, resilience, and authenticity. These initiatives not only helped countless individuals but also strengthened the bonds between Daniel, Liam, and the rest of the family. One evening, as the Parkers gathered around the fireplace, flipping through old photo albums and reminiscing about happier times, Daniel felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road to healing hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. They had faced their darkest truths, confronted their deepest fears, and emerged stronger than ever. As he glanced at the locket hanging around his neck, the same one Emily had, wanted to fill with a picture of whoever mattered most, he smiled softly. In a way, she had succeeded. Her memory was etched into every corner of their lives, reminding them to live fully, love deeply, and cherish the moments that truly mattered. Though Emily was gone, her presence lingered, in the laughter of her loved ones, in the stories they told, and in the dreams they dared to chase. And as long as those dreams continued to burn brightly, she would never truly be forgotten. The discovery of the locket and Emily's final message marked a turning point for the Parker family. It was as if her voice, silent for so many years, had finally been heard, not just by Daniel, but by everyone who loved her. The words she left behind, "Don't let my dreams die with me," became a mantra that guided them forward. Slowly, they began to embrace not only her memory, but also the lessons her life and death had taught them. For John, Emily's father, the journey toward redemption was ongoing. He had spent decades carrying the weight of his mistakes, believing he didn't deserve forgiveness. But Emily's note, written in her own hand, offered him a lifeline, a chance to heal not just himself, but also the fractured relationships within their family. One evening, after a particularly emotional conversation with Sarah, he made a decision that would change everything. "I need to do something," John said, his voice trembling with resolve. "Something tangible." "For Emily." Sarah looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" John hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I've spent years running from what happened, hiding behind guilt and regret. But now I want to honor her, to show the world the kind of person she was and the kind of people we can be because of her." Thus began John's mission to create a lasting tribute to Emily. With Daniel and Sarah's support, he spearheaded the construction of a community center dedicated to empowering young women. Named Emily's Haven, the center provided resources, mentorship programs, and safe spaces for girls and women to explore their passions and pursue their goals. Funded partly by donations raised through the scholarship fund and partly by John's personal savings, the project became a labor of love for the entire family. As the months passed, Emily's Haven took shape. Volunteers poured in from all corners of the town, eager to contribute to the cause. Some painted murals on the walls depicting scenes of courage and hope. Others helped design workshops and activities aimed at fostering creativity, confidence, and leadership skills. When the grand opening arrived, the turnout exceeded everyone's expectations. Hundreds of people gathered outside the building, eager to celebrate Emily's legacy and witness the impact of her story on their community. During the ceremony, John stood before the crowd, his eyes glistening with tears. Clutching a framed copy of Emily's journal entry, He spoke from the heart. "My daughter dreamed of freedom," he began, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "She wanted to live authentically, without fear or judgment, and while I failed her in life, I vow to honor her in death by helping others achieve the dreams she never could." His words resonated deeply, earning applause and cheers from the audience. As the ribbon was cut and the doors opened, visitors were greeted by exhibits showcasing Emily's artwork, photographs, and letters. In one corner, a small display featured the locket Daniel had found buried alongside her grave. Beneath it hung a plaque bearing her final message, "Don't let my dreams die with me." The success of Emily's Haven sparked a ripple effect throughout the town. Conversations about mental health, parental expectations, and the importance of supporting young people's aspirations became commonplace. Parents who had once imposed rigid rules on their children began listening more intently, striving to strike a balance between guidance and trust. Teenagers who had felt trapped or misunderstood found solace in knowing they weren't alone and that there were adults willing to stand by them. For Daniel, seeing the positive impact of Emily's story filled him with pride and purpose. His photography career continued to flourish, with galleries across the country featuring his work. Yet he never lost sight of why he had started this journey in the first place. Each photograph he captured told a story, not just of beauty, but of resilience, vulnerability, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome adversity. One of his most poignant projects involved documenting the lives of young women who had benefited from Emily's Haven. Through intimate portraits and candid interviews, he highlighted their struggles, triumphs, and hopes for the future. These images formed the basis of a traveling exhibition titled Dreams Unbound, which toured schools, libraries, and community centers nationwide. At each stop, audiences were invited to share their own stories, creating a tapestry of voices united by a common theme: the power of dreams to transform lives. Liam, too, played an integral role in spreading Emily's message. Though he no longer lived in the small town, he returned frequently to visit the Parkers and participate in events at Emily's Haven. Together with Daniel, he co-authored a book chronicling their shared memories of Emily and the lessons they had learned from her untimely death. Titled Freedom's Edge, A Story of Love and Loss, the book quickly gained traction, inspiring readers to reflect on their own relationships and choices. Through these efforts, Emily's influence extended far beyond her immediate circle. Her story touched strangers in ways none of them could have anticipated. Letters poured in from people around the world, thanking the Parkers for sharing her journey and reminding them that even in darkness, light could be found. Many expressed how Emily's courage had inspired them to break free from toxic environments, pursue long-abandoned passions, or simply believe in themselves again. Yet, amidst all the accolades and achievements, the Parkers remained grounded. They knew that true healing wasn't about erasing pain. It was about learning to carry it gracefully, allowing it to shape them into better versions of themselves. Every milestone they reached, every smile they shared, served as a testament to the strength of their bond and the enduring presence of Emily in their lives. On the anniversary of Emily's passing, the family gathered at her gravesite once more. This time, however, the atmosphere was different. Gone was the heaviness that had once weighed them down. In its place was a sense of peace and gratitude. Surrounded by flowers, candles, and mementos left by friends and strangers alike, they stood together, holding hands. Daniel stepped forward, placing a single rose on the headstone. "Hey, Em," he said softly, his voice breaking slightly. "We did it. We kept your dreams alive, and we're still fighting, for you, for us, and for everyone else who needs a reminder that they matter." Sarah knelt beside him, adding a small charm bracelet to the pile of tributes. "You'd be so proud of us," she whispered, "of how far we've come, of how much we've grown." Finally, John approached, clutching a folded piece of paper. With trembling hands, he unfolded it and read aloud the apology he had written to Emily. It was raw, honest, and unflinchingly vulnerable, a culmination of years spent wrestling with guilt and regret. By the time he finished, tears streamed down his face, but there was also a glimmer of hope in his eyes. As the sun set over the hilltop, casting golden rays across the landscape, the Parkers lingered a little longer, savoring the quiet moments, together. They knew that Emily wouldn't physically be with them ever again, but her spirit lived on in every act of kindness, every dream pursued, and every heart touched by her story. In the end, what mattered most wasn't the secrets they had uncovered or the truths they had faced. It was the love that bound them, the same love that had driven Emily to chase her dreams, Liam to hold on to hope, and the Parkers to rebuild their shattered lives. Love, they realized, was both the question and the answer. It was the force that had torn them apart and the glue that had brought them back together. And so as they walked away from the gravesite hand in hand, the Parkers carried with them not just grief, but gratitude. They had learned that life, like art, is messy and imperfect, but it is also beautiful, unpredictable, and worth every moment. Emily had taught them that, and though she was gone, her legacy would continue to shine brightly, lighting the way for generations to come.